Hello, horror fans, and welcome back to the Script to Screen podcast, where we delve into the spine-tingling world of horror cinema. Each week, we look at the scariest scenes, unmask the deeper meanings behind your favorite horror films, and explore the psychology of fear that keeps us coming back for more.
From script analysis to scene breakdowns, we'll be dissecting your favorite horror movies to see just what makes them tick. So whether you're a seasoned horror aficionado or just starting to explore the genre, join us as we unravel the spine-tingling stories that haunt silver screen.
I'm Will.
And once again, I awoke this morning to find that despite my offerings to the elder beings, I am still Lee.
Oh, it's great to be back with you, Lee. How have you been? What have you been watching?
Let's sort of think. What have I seen? Checked out The Long Walk, which was a real banger of a film. I've never read the original King version, but I was passingly familiar with it.
Yeah, so I've heard a few things about this film. Do you think it's worth a watch? Not just a bunch of guys walking around for 2 hours?
I mean, one could make a similar argument for Lord of the Rings, dude, but yeah, basically that's the concept. But the amount of character work that goes into this film is absolutely peak.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, David Johnson, man, I mean, he is rapidly becoming one of my favorite actors. I mean, I've only seen him in 2 films so far, but each time he was easily the best thing in it and absolutely blew me away with his performance.
Nice, dude. Yeah, Mark Hamill's in this as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say though, he was easily the worst thing in the film for me. I mean, he was played such a one-note, one-dimensional villain. Maybe it was just me, but as a massive fan of Hamill's voice work in particular, I just felt like he phoned it in a bit here.
Oof. The force is not with you today, my friend.
Yeah, fair. How about you, my brother from another mother?
Well, I haven't had a lot of time this week, but I did catch a Western from a director who I really like called Andre de Toth. I don't know if you've heard of Andre de Toth, but he's sort of a bit of an old school director with a great biography you should read, by the way, of his self-written, a really, really interesting character. But the Western was called Stranger Wore a Gun, and this starred Randolph Scott, who I've really come to kind of appreciate through his films with Bud Bettaker. But this one was not up to those standards, I'm afraid. It wasn't a great film, to be honest, Lee, but there were 2 interesting things which I sort of thought were worth noting. I mean, firstly, there was a lot of use of kind of people shooting directly at the camera,
Yeah.
kind of a la Edwin S. Porter, from the silent days. It also used this kind of, at times, this back projection technique, which looked kind of terrible. But it had kind of prop sort of rocks in the foreground, which the crew obviously sort of moving to the side as the camera panned. So it looked really, really hokey now. But I thought, it's just a good indicator that de Toth is always looking to try new things and be kind of experimental. So didn't sort of hugely enjoy the film, but I enjoyed those 2 sort of bits. I thought they were really interesting.
Awesome. So, what's strapped on the table for dissection this week?
Well, Lee, this week we're going to be looking at the modern vampire classic, 30 Days of Night.
Another real rip fest that spawned from comic book origins. I mean, this one based very closely on the IDW original 3-part comic series released way back in '02 and written and illustrated by Steve Niles and Ben Templesmith, respectively. And you talk about a perfect storm. I mean, Niles' fantastic concept coupled with Templesmith's uniquely macabre painted artwork was just mind-blowing. It put IDW on the map and generated nearly 20 spin-offs and sequels, only the first of which has made it to film and went directly to DVD and was a total bomb compared to the original.
Right. So originally released October 19th, 2007, and directed by David Slade, and filmed for a budget of around $30 million. It would go on to make over $75 million at the global box office. So not a horrible showing there, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, 30 mil is pretty generous budget for a horror movie. You're always going to struggle to make a huge profit on that, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so what made you choose this one for the section this weekly?
Well, it's hardly a new reason, but this is another brilliant example of an absolutely killer concept. And it's one that pretty much does most of the work for you. I mean, like when we looked at A Quiet Place earlier, this is a concept that almost writes itself and just goes to show just how key a really powerful concept can be. It's also a very unique take on vampires here. I mean, these guys are apex predators, as far above us in the food pyramid as we are from cattle. And being as this came out around the time of the Twilight bubble, I mean, there are no glowing fairies here, though. I mean, these guys are like sharks in human skin. They're like black eyed and fanged. And we'll be looking at just how Niles crafted these horrific predators to be standout movie monsters. And because it's based on a comic book, we'll also be looking at how it compares and what, if any, major differences there are between the film and the comic.
Awesome. So, just to summarize, we'll be examining the standout concept, the unique take on vampires, and the major differences between the screen and the page.
Absolutely, my man. And we're going to be comparing the film to a copy of the script dated 28th of November '05, with various revisions taking it up to 22nd of July '06. The original screenplay is written by Steve Niles with revisions by Stuart Beattie, Adi Hassak, and Brian Nelson.
Awesome, dude. Okay, so let's waste no more time as we strap down and dissect 30 Days of Night. A remote Alaskan town is plunged into a month of perpetual darkness, drawing the attention of a coven of savage vampires who revel in the opportunity to hunt and feed without restriction. With escape impossible, the sheriff and his estranged wife lead a desperate band of survivors against these unstoppable apex predators. So we open on a screen of brilliant white pure snow and the following superimpose. Barrow, Alaska, northernmost town in the US, isolated in 80 miles of roadless wilderness, cut off every winter for 30 days of night.
Yeah, the superimpose is not present in the script.
So before we dive into the film properly, and I have to ask, is Barrow a real place? And is the whole sort of concept realistic?
That's actually a really good jumping on point. So let's take a minute and break down the whole kind of basis and feasibility of this cracking concept. First up, Barrow, Alaska is indeed a real place, although it has had a change of name since the movie's release.
Okay, and what was the reason for that?
Well, the name Barrow came from Point Barrow, which was named for a British admiral in the 1800s. Its original Inuit name was Utqiagvik. And after a poll was taken by the residents regarding the name, it was returned back to its original title. As for the whole 30 Days of Night thing, well, the town actually kind of experiences something like 65 days of night. However, it's not like the film where the sun goes down and doesn't rise again for a month. It's a much more gradual affair with the sun rising lower and lower until it doesn't fully crest the horizon for a length of time. And also the whole thing about the town being cut off. I mean, the airport doesn't shut down for 30 days for a start. I mean, why would it? It's not like planes can't take off and land in the dark. Also, I mean, the town has phones and internet, etc.
Yeah, so not entirely realistic then.
No, but you know what I always say? Never let realism get in the way of a good story.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so let's crack on with the film. So after our brief superimpose, which then bleeds wonderfully into the title, we snap to a close-up shot of the stranger, played by the always immensely enjoyable Ben Foster. He's looking out across the snow at a seemingly derelict ship just offshore. The rowboat nearby suggests that he's come from there before he turns and walks away. And it's a beautiful shot to open with. We follow the stranger as he trudges across the snowy expanse. He has the worn look of an addict, unkempt with bloodshot eyes, but he is laser focused as he walks onward, unrelenting until he arrives at the outskirts of the small town of Barrow, Alaska. Another super informs us that this is the last day of sun.
This is pretty much as written in the script, save the supers instead inform us that the stranger has arrived 2 days previous.
So back on screen, we meet Sheriff Eben Ollerson, played by horror regular Josh Hartnett.
Yeah, man. I mean, Hartnett cut his teeth on Halloween H2O, and he's been a regular genre mainstay ever since.
He and his deputy Billy Kitka are examining a strange scene. All the town's satellite phones have been stolen, dumped in a crudely dug pit and burned. Billy is played by genre legend Manu Bennett.
AKA Crixus, the undefeated Gaul of the House of Batiatus.
Say what now?
Not a Spartacus fan?
I love the Kirk Douglas version.
Oh man, we are not the same.
So Eben and Billy take a moment to lament the sunset and the last daylight for a month before heading back into town. Eben clearly has a lot on his shoulders, almost like he can feel something bad is coming. He and Billy head to the town welcome sign, where Billy changes the population number from 563 to 152, clearly showing that there's been a not unexpected exodus of sorts.
Yeah, in reality, the town population is over 4,000.
Yeah, I guess smaller is cheaper, somewhat more intimate in terms of storytelling. We also see Eben puffing on an asthma inhaler.
Yeah, that part is missing from the script here.
Right, so we now meet Eben's estranged wife, Stella, played by Melissa George. She's doing some last-minute checks before catching the last plane out before the long dark hits, clearly keen to avoid her husband at all costs, it would seem.
Yeah, in the script, we actually get a host of scenes before this one, mainly of various townsfolk either preparing to leave or holding up for the long night.
So with Stella introduced a little early, we now get most of those little scenes followed by what every horror fan seemingly can't live without, Lee, some canine murder. Unbelievable. As an unknown assailant butchers the town's sled dogs with a hunting knife.
In the script, the canine massacre occurs right after the scene with the sign.
I swear to God, Lee, you're picking these movies on purpose just to wind me up.
As if I'd be that petty.
Okay, well, Eben and Billy stop off to write a citation for one Bo Brower, something of a loner who lives out of town. Eben tells Billy he wrote him a citation to remind him that he's part of the town despite living apart from it.
Lovely. I mean, I'm sure he'd have preferred a greetings card or a dinner invite, but hey, maybe that's just me. And this is another scene that was just repositioned from slightly earlier in the script.
Yeah, so why do you think they juggled these scenes around, Lee?
I'd say it's probably because Stella is a much more important character than any of these other townsfolk. And if we'd first met her afterwards, she may have been somewhat downplayed in the shuffle. What do you think?
Yeah, I'd say so. I think I agree. I mean, I think a lot of times these scenes are kind of reshuffled in editing to try and emphasize things. And I think bringing Stella more to the fore seems logical here. Well, that said, we're back to Stella now, who is gunning it for the airfield when her pickup is broadsided by a
Giant fucking chainsaw truck.
it's absolutely bonkers. It is indeed, for all intensive purposes, a rather large truck-mounted chainsaw.
I want one.
What possible use could you have for a giant truck-mounted chainsaw, Lee?
Okay, counter argument. Name me one problem that couldn't be solved with a giant truck mounted chainsaw.
Well, I don't know, childbirth?
You've a little imagination. Chainsaws were actually originally invented to assist with childbirth.
Yeah, I'm going to call bollocks on that one, I'm afraid.
Dude, seriously, Google it.
Okay. Holy merciful Christ. You got to excuse me for a second while I bleach my eyeballs, Lee.
I know, right?
Anyway, mercifully, we've digressed, so let's get back on point. A reluctant Stella is forced to call Eben for a ride, but he is none too happy that she came to town without telling him and palms her off on Billy instead. We then get a great shot of the entire town, and there's some important geography we should take note of here. The huge industrial building, aka the Utilidor, to the south, the airfield to the far north, and the oil pipeline running adjacent to the east side of the town. All of these will come into play at some point during the film. Off now to the scene of the Cannicide, where Eben warily studies the remains of the butchered sled dogs.
Yeah, I mean, shades of the thing here. Some horrifically massacred pooch effects on display.
Yeah. The grieving dog owners, John and Ali Reese, are rightfully shaken up, but Eben vows to catch the killer after giving us the handy information that this didn't happen long ago and the culprit has nowhere to go. Get him! Get him! The dog murderer. Okay, so Stella is finally picked up by Billy as Eben head back to the station where his younger brother Jake and elderly receptionist Helen are keeping things in check. No rest for the wicked, though, as Eben is off to investigate a report of vandalism at the Utilidor. More bad news for Stella as she misses the last flight out of Barrow, and her and Billy head back into town.
Yeah. Speaking of town, did you notice the life-size polar bear statue?
Yeah, hard to miss it. Pretty cool.
Total hazard, in my opinion.
Okay, go on.
Okay, explain to me the logic in having a life-size, realistic polar bear statue in a town where there are actual, real, life-size polar bears roaming around. I mean, people will be so used to seeing the statue in town that should a real polar bear rock up, there's a good chance they might initially dismiss it as a statue before realizing their mistake as they are brutally eaten alive by said polar bear. And it's kind of like that scene at the end of The Man with the Golden Gun, where Roger Moore poses as his own mannequin to get the drop on Scaramanga.
Oh, nice tangent, dude. Okay, but yeah, I guess. I mean, are polar bears an actual concern in Barrow, or?
Yeah, for sure, dude. I mean, in real life, they have like polar bear patrols and everything.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I guess you're making sense, sort of. At the Utilidor, what is a Utilidor exactly, by the way?
Okay, well, according to my good buddy Google, a utilidor is a set of would-be underground pipes that are placed above ground. In this case, because they would freeze and crack. Here it seems to refer to the big old building too, which, according to the script, is a sewage maintenance plant.
Ah, okay, good knowledge. So at the Utilidor, Eben's buddy Carter dismisses the fact that his beloved family have yet to join him in Barrow as he shows Eben the remnants of the local helicopter that has been fed into the town's massive grinder of death.
I'm telling you now, if nobody ends up being ground to paste by the giant grinder of death, I am giving this film 1 out of 10.
I'd imagine you'll be safe on that one, but maybe they'll feed some dogs in there as well, right? We'll get a kick out of that. We'll see. Okay, but Eben is getting increasingly worried and confused. There are lots of parts to this puzzle that he has yet to put together. Out at the town's lonely communications outpost, a lone operator, Gus, mans the town's satellite array. There's something strange going on outside, though, and as he heads out to check, he's surrounded by shadowy figures who whip past him and make sinister noises, and then he's brutally slayed. It's our first scary moment, and it clocks in at around the 18-minute mark.
Yeah, it's our first glimpse of the impending vampire-shaped doom that is about to befall the town, and I love the unnatural aspect of these vamps, but we'll go into more detail on that when we see them clearer shortly.
Nice. Now, back in the town diner, and the stranger is causing something of a stir. His request for liquor is declined as alcohol is illegal during the long night. Then the waitress, Lucy, declines his request for a bowl of raw hamburger.
Who doesn't love a bowl of raw hamburger?
Indeed.
I just got to say how delightfully odd and creepy Ben Foster is here, from his like croaky whisper to his like gross Rice Krispie teeth.
Yeah, he is a sinister chap, to be sure. Thankfully, Eben arrives before he can cause any trouble and tries to talk the stranger into stepping outside.
Yeah, I really like how kind of jovial and chilled he is in the film. It's a much smarter and more realistic approach than just going in all brutish, which is kind of how he is in the script. Check it out.
Interior, Icos Diner, night. Lucy Icos, sturdy, late 60s, stares uncertainly at the tense stranger sitting at her diner counter. The stranger will only ever speak in a sibilant, slimy whisper. Lucy, alcohol's illegal this month. Folks have a hard enough time in the dark without booze making it worse. Stranger, forget the liquor, Lucy. Bring me a bowl of raw hamburger. Lucy, you can only get meat 2 ways around here, frozen and burnt. Stranger, you don't give me what I want to eat, what I want to drink. He runs a nail across her cheek threateningly. Eben claps a hand on the stranger's shoulder. Eben, that's enough, pal. Leave the woman be. Time to hit the road. The stranger rises, out to intimidate. He's a bit taller than Eben, but Eben stands his ground without a flinch. Stranger, what's wrong with a man wanting a little fresh meat? Eben, if you refuse to leave, I'll escort you out of here myself. Stranger looms over Eben. I'd like to see that. So why the subtle change, do you think, Lee?
I think it's just more realistic police work, I reckon. I mean, try and diffuse any aggression before instigating more for the safety of the public, if nothing else. Plus, unlike in the script, Evan is like a head and a half taller than the stranger. So it's hard to believe that Evan wouldn't just kick the shit out of this little guy, despite his sinister bravado.
Yeah. Okay, the face-off is interrupted, though, as Stella and Billy arrive, and Stella puts a gun to the back of the stranger's head.
Yeah, I mean, if she had pulled that trigger, she'd be burying her husband too at that range.
So things are obviously strained between them. Maybe this is our plan all along, killing two birds with one stone, maybe?
Yeah.
Together, the estranged couple subdue the dirty stranger and head back to the sheriff's station, where Stella reunites with Jake, Eben's younger brother, and Helen, their grandmother. Meanwhile, somewhere on the outskirts of town, oil workers Aaron, Gabe, and Denise are drunkenly debating where they intend to.
Run a train on the young woman.
Yeah, they're showing their class all round here.
In the script, this scene occurs in two parts, the first of which occurs earlier while Stella is in the car with Billy, and the three lusty Alaskans have a brief encounter with Eben.
Exterior pipeline night. Three oil workers, 20s, wobble past the pipeline. Aaron, with half-empty Jack Daniels, and Gabe eye Denise hopefully. While she's no starlet, to them she's Catherine Zeta-Jones. Denise, look, my landlady doesn't want pipeline workers keeping her up. Gabe, Denise is right. Let's head over to my place. Denise, playfully, neither of you are getting me alone. Aaron, then we'll share, right? None of us have to be greedy. They all laugh. None of them sure where this might be heading, but willing to see. As Eben pulls up beside them. Eben, hey Aaron, you know there's no drinking till the sun's back up. They shift, embarrassed to be busted, as Gabe takes the bottle from Aaron and hands it to Eben. Gabe, we don't need it, Eben. We can get drunk on Denise's beauty and charm. Denise, laughing, I may throw up. Eben, I won't write you guys up tonight. Just don't give me another reason till New Year's, okay? Aaron, yes sir, we'll be good. The party walks away with Denise laughing.
The second half of this scene occurs a little later in the script, but plays out pretty much exactly as it does on the page.
So our horny cruise night definitely doesn't go as planned, as Gabe and then Aaron are brutally dispatched by shadowy figures at around the 22-minute 45-second mark. Denise doesn't hang around. As soon as one of her would-be suitors is dispatched, she is off and running.
The whole train is pulling out of the station.
Oh, dude.
Sorry.
Back at the sheriff's station, and the stranger isn't being forthcoming. Eben finds some pot in Jake's drawer, but it's okay because it turns out it helps with poor Helen's cancer. I'm sure that'll come in handy later on.
Cancer?
No, Lee, the pot.
Oh.
But now it seems the computers have gone down, as have the phone lines. The stranger then pipes up with some sinister insinuations that they are coming and that they will honor him for all he has done. And then the lights go out, Lee, and Eben leaves to check on Gus at the cell tower.
As we, the audience, are already aware, Gus is fucked.
Gus is indeed worse for wear, and Eben locates his severed head skewered on a pole.
Ain't no polar bear doing that.
No.
There's a cool line in the script at this point that was cut, and it's a shame, I think, because it just paints Eben in a slightly better light, makes him a little more on top of the situation. I'll read it for you. Eben continued, come in, Helen? Helen, off screen, on walkie-talkie. Roger, Eben, what happened there? Eben, mind racing. We're being cut off.
Yeah, I can see how that little line would have done a fair bit for the character. But at this point, Eben races back through town, issues a warning to the locals to lock themselves inside and load any guns they may have. If people don't have a generator, they should meet at the diner. We're then back with Ali and John Reese. John is clearly anxious, firearm nearby, whereas Ali is trying to occupy herself cooking dinner. Dinner plans are interrupted, though, as a vamp literally dives through the window and slides across the kitchen table at 28 minutes and 45 seconds.
Have you ever played Street Fighter 2, anything like that, man?
I did.
You did? Did you remember Eddie Honda? Because this vampire, he basically just full on sumo torpedoes that shit through the window across the table. Fucking hilarious.
Does, doesn't he? Okay, so John rushes to his wife's aid just as she is dragged through the window. He rushes outside but is unable to save his wife as she's dragged away under the houses, which in point leads me to another question. Why are all the houses on stilts?
Good question. Pretty much for the same reason the pipes are all above ground. If they built directly on or in the permafrost, it could crack or melt, causing the houses to shift. Also, in the case of flooding and heat retention, it's just much more efficient to build above ground. Plus, from a filmmaking perspective, it gives us a lot of shadowy alcoves where people can hide and horrors can lurk. And I may be in the minority here, but did it make you laugh when the vamp just kind of yeets the poor woman under the house and she just kind of slides off on the ice? I used to do similar things with my kids and pets on the laminate floor. It's good with good times.
You know what, Lee, I'll admit I did not laugh during this sequence. Okay, so now back at the sheriff's station, Jake and the girls are playing a board game, but Jake especially is being sort of worn down by the stranger's taunts and mutterings and hurls a tiny plastic playing piece at him in frustration. The stranger boasts that he's going to break the piece apart and pick the lock with it, causing Jake to make a mad dash for the pernicious plastic.
What a fucking idiot.
He's just a child, Lee.
Ah, child my ass.
It does prove to be an ill thought out move, though, as the stranger grabs him by the throat and demands to be released from his cell.
Now, before we go any further, the script compounds on the stupidity by backtracking on Stella's badass diner scene a few minutes previous and turning her into a bumbling idiot. Check it out.
Before Stella can stop him, Jake heads for the cell. Unprepared as the stranger grabs Jake and pulls him tight against the cell bars. Jake gasps in pain, trying to call out but unable to get his breath as the stranger slowly strangles him, hissing. Stranger, the keys, now! Stella seethes, hating this deal but having no choice. As Helen trembles, Stella picks up Jake's dropped flashlight and reaches for the keyring. Stranger continued as Jake gasps, "Better hurry." The keys clang as Stella reaches for the lock, opening the door. Stranger continued, "Now back away." As Jake's eyes bulge, Stella steps back, seething and waiting for some window to act. The stranger moves an arm around the cell door, ready to swing Jake around as a shield. Now, thankfully, before things get to this point on screen, Eben walks in and shoots the stranger, causing him to release Jake and thus save the day.
I appreciate the fact that they cut this, as without it on screen, it infers that, in my mind at least, Stella would have been perfectly capable of handling this shit on her own.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. But I guess Eben hasn't really had a badass kind of protagonist moment yet, so he's probably a little overdue.
I mean, that's fair, I guess. It still feels a little guy saves the poor ladies, which is fair enough in the right circumstances. But, we know Stella is more than capable of taking care of herself and others.
Yeah.
I also love the fact that the stranger is literally kind of foaming at the mouth here like a rabid animal. He's just so delightfully nasty. You kind of feel like if you touched him, you'd come down with something. There's a little extra dialogue in the script, but nothing essential is cut. It's just kind of trimming the fat. We do get this pretty cool use of parentheticals that I liked and some nicely written tension between husband and wife on the page. So check this out.
Eben continued. If everyone followed curfew, his friends won't have any places to hide. I'll find Billy, then work our way from South Street towards the pipeline. Stella, I'll join you too. Eben, in parentheticals, thanks, but I can handle it. Stella, right now, you, me, and Billy are the only authorities. Be stupid not to take more help. Whatever your faults, you're not stupid. Eben knows she's right. Not going to give her the satisfaction of acknowledging it. He looks to Helen. Helen, we've got the walkie-talkies. We'll be fine. In parentheticals, Eben keeps watching her. We'll be fine. Eben nods in appreciation to Helen, turns curtly to Stella. Eben, you drive. I'm riding shotgun. Stella swallows her temptation to talk back. Yeah, man, I see what you mean. I feel like a lot of the marital strife has been stripped away for the actual film. Maybe it didn't test that well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it seems it's a shame, as it is kind of a big part of the story of the film.
Yeah. But I guess, I mean, the people came to see vampires eat people, Lee, not marriage counseling sessions. Anyway, as in the script, Eben and Stella hit the road in an attempt to locate the murderous intruders, and they aren't far out when Eben spots something in the road up ahead. They exit the vehicle, and Stella checks out the road with a pair of binoculars before ordering Eben back into the truck. She's seen something out there, Lee, and it has her scared.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're missing out on a key insert here.
Yeah, same.
I mean, in the comics, we get a really badass splash page here, and yeah, I think you can feel it's missing, I think.
Yeah, it does feel a little lacking here. Yeah, I agree with that. But no sooner are they driving in the opposite direction when they are pursued by a shadowy figure that leaps atop the truck and proceeds to batter on the roof. Eben shoots it, but that just seems to piss it off. Thankfully, Stella is able to execute a tried and tested break and they fly off the roof maneuver and they escape back to town.
Yeah, in the script, Evan's gunshot is enough to dislodge the creature. And I think I'm going to put the end of Act One around about here. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that, dude. Yeah. So Eben and Stella waste no time in racing back to town, but in their brief absence, the town has gone to hell in a big way, Lee. Cars are burning in the street, gunshots ring out, and worst of all, poor Helen's agonized death moans pipe up over the radio. They rush back to the station, but there's no sign of Jake or Helen, just one hell of a lot of blood. The stranger remains where they left him. He is mortified they didn't take him and begs Eben to kill him.
Yeah, this plays a little differently in the script, so check it out.
Interior Sheriff Station, night. Weak lights from the generator. The door is blasted off its hinges, the windows are shattered and the furniture is tossed around. Eben and Stella move in, weapons drawn. Eben, no. On the floor, Helen's body is twisted and bloody. Across the room, her severed head looks over at them sadly. Eben leans back on the desk, short of breath, staggered by the shock of losing his grandmother. He fumbles for his inhaler and gives himself a blast. Stella, Jake? Jake? They sweep the station, no sign of Jake. They appraise the room, wheels turning. The stranger's corpse lies exactly as they left it in the cell, untouched. They look back on the station from inside the cell. The doors open, but still they feel trapped. Stella continued. Could Jake have gotten away? Eben walks to the open doorway, seething at how his town's spiraling out of control. Eben, we'll find out. And you know what's coming, Lee. So why the changes, do you think?
I mean, Ben Foster is just so good. He deserves better than to be killed off screen, and that's reason enough for me. As for Grandma Helen, maybe the sight of the poor old deer with her head twisted off was considered too much for the audience at this point. Nothing against the old deer, but I'd have been all for it personally.
You're a monster, Lee. I think you're right about both those points, though. Also, dude, I mean, I love this shot of Melissa George. Her face half hidden by the cell door. Just some really good framing there, I think. Totally awesome. Okay, so next up, we get our first decent look at the vampires, and more importantly, their sinister leader, Marlowe, played by Danny Houston, as he instructs his sinister minions to remove the heads of their kills so as not to turn them.
I mean, I've got to pipe up here. In my opinion, his performance in this film should go down in history as one of the all-time greatest villain portrayals ever. He is just so damn good. Just like pure otherworldly evil and genuinely fucking terrifyingly scary.
Yeah, the whole kind of clicky, screechy dialect of the vampires is really sort of chillingly effective, isn't it?
It is. It's fantastic. It's just a feast for the ears. And a couple of cool factoids for you. A university linguist was hired to create a whole language of vampires just for the film, focusing largely on speaking during the intake of breath rather than the exhalation. not to mention the various growls, screeches, and clicks. Some of the feeding vocals were recorded while the actors had a mouthful of yogurt to get like the proper gurgling effect. And man, that is some fucking dedication, I think. But what's really interesting is that in the comics, all the vampires speak perfect English, which, in my humble opinion, would have tanked this film very hard.
Yeah, so you called his character Marlowe. Is he referred to by name at any point in the film?
No, I don't believe so. But I mean, all the vampires have names, in fact, but none are spoken in the film, only appearing in the film's credits and the script itself. And I'd also wager that the name Marlowe is probably a loving homage to King's Salem's Lot and its big bad Barlow. But let's take a look at how the script handles Marlowe's introduction and the vampire's intricate language.
Exterior, streets, Eben's 4x4, night. Snowfall. Stella drives them off into the barren streets with their alarm lights flashing as, down the street behind them, figures gather in a desolate intersection watching. When we can catch a glimpse of them through the shadows, they are gaunt, dead pale, of varying heights and ages, from young to seasoned to ancient. Their breath does not cloud in the cold. They wear blacks, greys and browns, their clothing old and worn, most of it scavenged from the dead. Their eyes are entirely black, diamond hard and shiny, so that the snow sometimes reflects in them. They walk like humans would, if humans were nothing but muscle and hunger and cruel cunning. 17 of them swarm around the alpha leader of the group, Marlowe, mid-30s, feral, ragged, relentless. He cracks the frozen blood on his face, lets it fall as he hisses in an ancient, glottal, unrecognizable language. Marlowe, in parentheses, cry of smug triumph. Iris agrees. Drawn, ashen, Marlowe's personal bootlicker. Iris, in parentheticals, sycophancy, hunger. Zuriel, not as tall as Marlowe, but more craven and famished, admires the town. Just 2 lines are subtitled. Zuriel, in parentheses, there's enough feasting here to keep us strong for a year, Marlowe. Marlowe looks to the town, coldly dispassionate. Marlowe, in parentheses, we should have done this ages ago. Yeah, it's also really interesting going back to the filmed scene that he instructs the vampires to decapitate their kills so as not to allow them to turn. I mean, this actually sort of foreshadows several later events and offers a glimpse at just how easily this particular form of vampirism can be spread, seemingly through bites or scratches. But back to the film, and several survivors have gathered to try and take stock of the situation, including Jake, Carter, and Denise.
Choo-choo.
Behave, Lee. Behave. We then get a chilling scene of Marlowe and his main squeeze Iris torturing and feeding off an unfortunate Jeannie and Adam. Marlowe hisses in vampiric tongue, there's no escape, no hope, only hunger and pain, before skewering the poor man with a fire poker at 37 minutes and 30 seconds.
Okay, so I was blasted out of the movie at this point, and allow me to explain why. So I was watching this one on the Bezos network with subtitles on, so I didn't miss any dialogue. And the obvious AI subtitles were, well, man, they were something else, man.
Go on.
Okay, so this chilling scene and Marlowe's slightly odd little monologue, bear in mind speaking in the clicky, guttural vampire tongue we love so much, was translated by the AI as, and I quote, cut the dick and then the dick jaw heart.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So after laughing so hard I legitimately thought I might die, I went back and screen grabbed that shit so you can use it for the website thumbnail.
Oh, you're such a child, Lee.
Fuck off, man. We should put that shit on a fucking t-shirt. Also, this scene is absent at this point from the script.
Okay, so after this is an absolute feeding frenzy at 38 minutes and 30 seconds as the ravenous vampires lay waste to the town in a fantastic montage of slaughter, which includes some stunning aerial camera work and even a goddamn Wilhelm scream, Lee.
And there is a time and a place for Wilhelm, and this wasn't it. I mean, you are the film connoisseur. Why don't you explain the phenomenon for anyone who may not know what the Wilhelm scream is?
Okay, so the Wilhelm scream is a now famous kind of stock sound effect, and it's been used in literally hundreds of films and television shows at this point. So I think a lot of people mostly kind of associate the Wilhelm scream with Star Wars. I think that's where most kind of folk first encountered it. And sound designer Ben Burtt used the sound effect for Star Wars and revived the sound basically as an inside joke for filmmakers. The sound effect itself originated from a 1953 film called The Change at Feather River, where a character is attacked and dragged into the water by an alligator, no less, Lee. So you like that, Lee, right? The scream actually got its name from a character in the film named Private Wilhelm, who is shot with an arrow. The scream itself is believed to have been voiced by actor Sheb Woolley, but it's a little hard to know for sure. Safe to say, once you recognize it, though, you just hear it everywhere, right? Okay, so back at the diner, and Eben and Stella finally rock up to get things organized. After a touching reunion with his brother, Eben declares that they need a place to hide, somewhere close, which rules out the fabled utilidor for the moment. Denise suggests Charlie Kelso's attic, mainly because it's close and well hidden.
Gee, I wonder how Denise knows about Charlie Kelso's attic.
Well, dude, there's a million potential reasons, right?
You reckon he was a passenger on the train?
Stop it, Lee. Eben puts Carter in charge of leading the survivors into the attic while he and Stella gather supplies.
Yeah, again, the script plays up the tension between the two, which has been largely downplayed on screen.
Stella follows him towards the door, their talk now private. Stella, I'll cover your back. Eben, in parentheses, can't resist it. Sure you won't run away to Anchorage? Stella, in parentheses, that was a low blow. Cut me a break. Eben considers, nods grimly. For now they're in a truce. Together they head out, determined. No time for stealth here, though, as our two heroes tear down the bloody streets in Eben's police truck, only for it to come to a sudden, abrupt halt. And the vamps have a hold of the truck, and not only are they strong enough to stop it moving on a goddamn icy road, Lee, but then they start to tip the damn thing over while trying to pull the occupants out. This all happened around the 41-minute and 30-second mark. Eben manages to kill one of the vamps with a well-placed headshot before Marlowe snatches the weapon away, and hero and villain share their first face-off. The vamps succeed in flipping the truck, and it looks like curtains for Eben and Stella until Bo rocks up in his snowplow and smashes through the horde, allowing both Stella and then Eben to narrowly escape.
I really hope Evan feels like shit for writing him that citation.
Well, I'm sure there's more pressing matters on his mind right now, Lee.
Yeah, I mean, in the script, the snowplow scene is slightly longer, and Bo has to dislodge a stubborn vamp that is clinging on for the ride.
There's no such complications in the film, though, and our three hardened survivors make it to Kelso's house undetected.
Another nice little Eben moment in the script that didn't make it to the film, where upon entering the house, Eben makes everyone wait for a little while and quietly search the house for supplies, just in case they were seen or followed, so as not to lead any vamps to the fabled attic. And that explains why on screen Bo produces some walkie-talkies and Stella suddenly has a revolver. They basically found them while they were looting the house.
Nice. So our weary trio make it to the fabled attic of Charlie Kelso, which is indeed hard to spot, and thankfully Carter managed to lead the rest of the survivors there with no casualties. With everyone safe, for the moment at least, Eben offers a rousing speech to keep everyone's spirits up. They have two advantages. They know the town, and they know the cold. Oh yeah. They also touch on the idea that they may be dealing with vampires here, although there is still, unbelievably, Lee, a little skepticism.
There's also an explanation in the script for how Denise knew about the attic, though it will forever remain a mystery on film. Feast your ears.
Warm with the amber glow from the propane heater, Stella and Eben huddle with the survivors, reeling with shock. Denise, Doug, Bo, Carter, Lucy, Jake, Wilson, and Isaac. Eben, how did you know about this attic, Denise? Denise, a beat. Does it matter? Eben, I need the odds someone else could know about it too. Denise. Charlie hid me here once, when his wife came back home early from work. The others nod, unwilling to judge. Jake frowns, a little confused. Stella finally settles the matter. Stella, glad he did.
Dude, I can feel you giving me evils.
Just waiting for your inevitable comeback, Lee.
Hey, you'll get no shaming from me. You know, if she weren't the town bike, they'd all be long dead by now.
Uh, Classily put, my friend, as ever. So back on screen, we catch back up with the stranger who is still handcuffed to the bars of his cell. He is awestruck when Marlowe arrives and credits him for doing all that he asked of him. And Marlowe promises to take care of him before brutally, or perhaps mercifully, snapping his neck.
Dude, you want to guess what the AI subtitles made of this one?
Oh, go on then.
Choo choo, shut them roofs.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant, isn't it? You know what, Lee? There are those who thought AI would produce a bunch of meaningless slop. I bet they feel a bit silly right now, eh?
Oh man, Skynet is just days away from becoming self-aware. I can feel it.
In the scene, though, it's kind of tragic in a way. You know, the poor stranger's so kind of ecstatic when he thinks he'll finally be made into one of the coven. Foster doesn't say a word, and yet he emotes so much with his piteous whining and nodding.
I know. I mean, Ben Foster is so underrated as an actor. I can't think of a single performance where he hasn't knocked it right out the park.
Yeah, can't argue with that, dude. He was great turn in Hostiles. Hello High Water was a great performance too, I thought. Anyway, back in the attic, and things are getting tense. Stella muses that it's a good thing Eben never wanted kids.
Oof. That'll no doubt have contributed to their ongoing marital issues. In the script, it's actually Eben who brings this up by saying, if we'd had kids, this would be worse.
Yeah, and things definitely get worse as dementia suffering Isaac has a noisy episode, but is thankfully calmed by his son Wilson and fellow attic dweller Lucy. To further confound things, the vamps start systematically gutting the town houses in search of survivors, meaning the clock is ticking to the survivors' potential discovery. Some of them want to make a run for the utilidor, but it's not clear all of them would make it. They can't stay much longer, though, and the decision is made to wait for the next snowstorm for cover and then make a run for it. A week passes, as told by a helpful superimposition.
Man, if the Paranormal Activity franchise has taught me anything, it's that daytime supers are never good news in a horror movie.
Yeah, and unfortunately for our survivors, this holds true as we're reintroduced to young Kirsten Toomey, whom we met briefly during the upbeat pre-night Exodus montage way back at the beginning of the film. And the poor lass has seen better days as she staggers through the streets, bloodied and bruised, whilst calling desperately for help around the 50-minute and 30-second mark. The attic survivors spy her through the window, but Eben immediately clocks that she's being stalked from the adjacent rooftops and correctly surmises that Marlowe and his creature crew are using the poor girl as bait.
And at this point in the script, Eben, Stella, and Bo all want to try and save the girl despite the danger. But Eben convinces Stella, who convinces Bo to stay behind and guard the attic. Thus, Eben heads out alone.
We miss this exchange on screen, though, as poor Kirsten finds herself confronted by Marlowe and his minions. She pleads with them that she tried to lure people out, but there's nobody left.
Yeah, a bit of a dick move on her part, but you know what? As you would say, my man, she's just a kid. God only knows how long she's been in Marlowe's clutches and what she has suffered. So I'm going to give her a pass on this one.
How generous of you, Lee. Well done. So Marlowe, on the other hand, is less forgiving. He crouches before the hysterical girl who pleads to God for mercy, and in a horrific scene, he taunts her by telling her there is no God.
This little moment is missing from the script, but it's so good. You know, if you've never seen it, just punch 30 Days of Night, No God scene into YouTube and you can watch the clip.
It really is chilling how little regard these vamps have for human life.
I mean, yeah, I guess.
Okay, I sense you have something to say.
Kinda. I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, these things are, from our perspective, evil as fuck.
But
But bear with me here. As far as they're concerned, we're just like walking gummy bears. I mean, we've literally taken over the planet, nearly destroying it in the process. And despite their obvious physical superiority, these things are forced to kind of hide and live in the shadows as, if discovered, we would surely annihilate them. All I'm saying is if I was one of these vamps, I would most likely hate humans too. And this whole cut loose hunting party they're on is like a once in a lifetime vacation for them. I mean, from their point of view, how annoying must we be? I mean, in the space of a couple of centuries, we've caused so much chaos and we've reached a technological point where we are too powerful for them to do anything about it. They're probably just holding out for some cataclysmic apocalyptic event to block out the sun, and then they're just going to put us in farms, dude.
Hmm. As always, your sympathy for the devil is interestingly thought out, yet infinitely disturbingly. I'm not sure I agree with forcing them to live in the shadows, though, dude. I mean, I think their physiology has to take at least some of the responsibility there. But back in the film, and Eben is working his way toward Kirsten and the vamps. Not sure what he intends to do, but bless him for trying. But he's interrupted by someone hissing his name, and it's John Reese, the unfortunate fellow whose wife was dragged away through the kitchen window, and he's hiding beneath a nearby house. Eben silently bids him to wait as he moves closer to Kirsten. But it quickly becomes clear that there's nothing he can do as the vamps mercilessly torture and kill the poor girl Lee has no sympathy for. Back in the attic, badass Bo wants to go and help, stating he'll kill anything, and I totally believe him, but Stella is able to convince him to stay and protect the group.
Yeah, I think Badass Bo is probably my favorite character in the whole film.
Oh, I had money on that, dude. Definitely. Okay, so back with Eben as he returns to John at around the 55-minute mark and helps drag him from under the house. And he is shocked to see that John has changed Lee. His eyes are glossy black and his teeth have narrowed to points. Eben reels back, shocked and horrified. John stumbles forward, and despite his growing horror, Eben moves in to help.
Really good character beat for Evan here. I mean, he's scared and confused, but his compassion and sense of responsibility for his friend compels him to act against his fear.
Yeah, almost proves his undoing, though, as the freshly turned John expresses his unyielding hunger and moves in for a little bite to eat. Eben pulls his gun, but dare not use it as he'll be ringing the dinner bell. Thankfully, in his mindless hunger, John gets caught up in a child's swing, allowing Eben to snatch up a nearby chopping axe and lop off his former friend's head.
I've got to say, all the blood, like the frozen scarlet patches in this sea of white snow, is so visually effective in this movie. Especially when you kind of think that every red stain is basically someone Sheriff Eben has failed to protect through no fault of his own, I must add. He really couldn't have done much more at this point with his current knowledge of the situation.
So Eben barely makes it back to the Kelso house. His asthma is rearing its ugly head and he collapses on the floor. Stella and Bo rush to his aid, but Eben has lost his inhaler and needs some time to recover. He manages to inform them that John has been turned into a vampire.
And this important piece of information will prove game changing in the future.
Meanwhile, Marlowe and Iris discover John Reese's headless corpse. Marlowe is seemingly intrigued. One of them has been killed and not by a lucky gunshot. Back in the attic, a stricken Eben recuperates while an exhausted Stella keeps watch. She doesn't notice the dementia-stricken Isaac sneak out of the attic, determined to walk the 80 miles to Wainwright until it's too late to stop him. She and Wilson follow him into the house and manage to calm him, but he insists on using the bathroom. The sneaky old timer manages to slip out through the bathroom window, and when Stella tries to stop Wilson from heading outside, he shoves her back and she's knocked unconscious, the impact of which wakes Eben from his slumber. There's no time to rest on their laurels, though, as the commotion has drawn the attention of one of Marlowe's head honchos, the bestial Alvin, at 1 hour and 1 minute. Eben and Stella take refuge in the bathroom, but the sinister stalker seemingly has their number as he approaches their hiding place. Thankfully, Wilson's calls for his father lures him away.
Nice. I feel I just need to throw out a long overdue shout out to veteran stunt performer Andrew Stalin, who just brings another level of malice and ferocity to the table in his performance as Alvin. I mean, keeping it real here, I think all of the vampire performers absolutely kill it. They just nail it perfectly.
Yeah, they're doing a good job, no doubt about that. Now, poor Wilson doesn't last 2 minutes outside, and he doesn't find any sign of his father either.
Yeah, old dude probably halfway to Wainwright by now. We also get another unfilmed scene in the script, doubling down on Evan and Stella's marital woes.
The survivors stir with hope. Even Doug takes a breath and finds a bit of patience. Stella turns privately toward Eben, taking him aside. Stella, hey, you know how you told me you could never be a dad? Bullshit. The way you look out for these people? Eben, don't compliment me. You'll just confuse me. Stella, it's not a compliment. It's an attempt to ram something through that concrete skull. You can pull off more than you think you can. Eben, a beat. Not if I have to worry my wife will run away when we can't work something out. They glare at each other in frustration, not sure why every conversation between them has to end in a quarrel. On screen, though, things are less confrontational between the two, but the mood is broken as something lands on the rooftop. After a tense moment, the unseen creature moves away, but with the snow falling afresh, the group decide it's time to move.
Yeah, in the script, the aforementioned vamp peeks in through the window, causing the group to immediately abandon ship. Also, at this point in the script, we get the scene from much earlier in the film where Marlowe and Iris torture Adam and Jeannie. Only this time they are doing so because the humans wouldn't help them locate other survivors.
Back on screen, our haggard survivors make their way through the roaring blizzard until they reach the general store, where they split up to gather supplies. Eben locates a fresh inhaler and puffs up before, as a group, our heroes become aware of a pathetic moaning from the back of the store. Making their way back there, they find one of the unfortunate townsfolk being feasted on by a vampiric child who taunts them before savagely attacking at around the 1 hour, 6 minute, 25-second mark. Thankfully, they're able to subdue her, and Jake steps up to behead the creature, but not before Carter is scratched on his face. Shit, Lee.
A couple of interesting things to note here. Firstly, a lot of people assume the child was one of the townsfolk that was turned, and this is obviously not the case as the child bears tattoos on each arm. Secondly, this particular vampire speaks perfect English, showing that if they so wished, the other vampires probably could too. And this kind of alludes to how the vampires could blend in with modern society. You know, throw in some dental inserts and contact lenses, and they'd be pretty indistinguishable to the casual viewer, which in a way kind of makes them even more terrifying. And a few more notes about the scene. The incident itself isn't shown, but the child tears her victim's head off before attacking the others. And another clue that she is an experienced vampire. The second cool thing is that when Evan approaches the darkened room in which the child is hiding, when she bursts out and attacks, he kind of swings right over her head because he's not expecting a small child to attack him. He's expecting a monstrous adult. And there's also a cool moment in the script where our heroes debate and conclude upon the meaning of all the decapitations that have been going on in town.
Jake stands over the corpse, still overwhelmed. Jake, she, just a girl. Stella, consoling him. Not anymore. Denise, she spoke to us in English. Was she some girl they just turned? Or one of them? Does anybody recognize her? Eben, correcting Denise. It, not her. They look towards the decapitated head, wincing. Nobody has an answer. Lucy walks toward the front door, reeling. Carter, scarf tightly wrapped around his head, sounds nauseated. Carter, it pulled Tom's head off before it attacked us. Stella, maybe they don't just do that out of bloodthirst. Eben, agreeing. They want to keep their numbers down. They don't want to give themselves competition. Eben and Stella share a look. No enemy has ever been more ruthless. And to make things worse, the snowstorm has ended, trapping everyone in the horribly exposed general store.
Oh, well, shit.
Shit indeed, Lee. Thankfully, a plan of sorts is hatched. First, Carter offers to create a diversion so the others can flee to the sheriff's station. Then Stella hatches on a plan to use the UV lamps in Helen's pot garden to distract and hopefully kill or injure some of their pursuers.
Yeah, I love the way this plan kind of builds naturally. It's not like a sudden, well formed idea. It starts with Carter's heroic offer of a diversion and then builds with Stella's conclusion that the vamps can't abide sunlight, which she deduces from their need to use the stranger to prep the town.
It falls to Eben to make the fateful run to Helen's, while Stella and Bo lead the survivors to the sheriff's station. Most of the vamps seem to have taken the bait, but one spots the group and takes out Doug, who, to be fair, has done nothing but complain and bitch the whole movie so far. So nobody's going to be really too cut up about that.
Yeah, it looks like Stella might try and go back for him, but Bo just kind of picks her up and legs it with the rest of the group.
The survivors make it to the station, which is now abandoned. Even the stranger's body has been dragged away. At Helen's, Eben readies himself with the UV lamp as Marlowe and his crew gather ominously outside.
Yeah, it's a really, really great moment here. And Iris is literally chomping at the bit to get inside to Eben. And it really kind of illustrates the savage pack mentality of these creatures. You know, she kind of edges closer and closer whilst continually looking to Marlowe for permission. It's like if you ever see kind of a pack of dogs or wolves or any other kind of pack oriented species. Her nature is compelling her to attack, but at the same time, she is fearful and respectful of the alpha and will not attack without his order.
Well, he gives it Lee, and Iris bursts inside, only to be hit with a blast of UV light, which hideously burns and disfigures her and sends her reeling back into Marlowe's arms. And once again, Marlowe and Eben's eyes lock in recognition. Stella checks in over the walkie-talkie, but there isn't much time as Marlowe's goons cut the power and Eben is forced to flee the house. He's escaped for the moment, but it'll be minutes at best before he's discovered and torn to pieces. Bo takes the radio from Stella and tells Eben where to go, and it's his turn to play the hero now. Marlowe returns to an agonized Iris and puts her out of her misery before we smash cut to Bo tearing down the street at 1 hour, 16 minutes and 30 seconds in, you guessed it,
Fucking chainsaw truck.
chainsaw truck. It's awesome. He is dicing vamps left, right, and center with a giant chainsaw, taking them down with his shotgun and snaring them up in bear traps. It's amazing. With the mighty chainsaw truck swarming with vamps, Badass Bo smashes into a nearby building before staggering out and igniting a box of road flares, which then explode for some reason. That wouldn't happen, right?
No, but it's like I always say, never let
Never let
realism
realism
get in
get
the
in the
way
way of
of
a
a
good
good story.
story. Absolutely. The blast badly injures Bo and sets several vamps ablaze, but they are easily able to extinguish themselves in the ready snow. And a vengeful Marlowe decapitates Bo by crushing his skull underfoot.
I can't believe they did my man dirty like that.
Wow. At least it was reasonably quick, all things considered. And most importantly, he succeeded in allowing Eben to rejoin the others. Speaking of which, a weary Eben staggers back into the station, gutted by Bo's death. He learns of Doug's demise, and just to really cap things off, Carter reveals that he's turning into a vampire.
And the hits just keep on coming.
Indeed. In a heartbreaking scene, Carter reveals why his family never joined him in Barrow. They were killed by a drunk driver, and he could never find the courage to join them. But the thought of living forever and never seeing them terrifies him so much that he begs Eben to kill him, and the nearly broken sheriff sadly obliges.
Yeah, I mean, Nathaniel Lee's a truly prolific character actor, absolutely kills it here as Carter.
It's suitably grim as Eben takes him to another room, and we just hear the wet thunk of the axe as it cuts his friend's head off. A handy super informs us that we are on day 27 now. The survivors have almost made it through the longest night of their lives. Still holed up in the sheriff's station, Eben notices something signaling from across the street, and it's Billy who has somehow survived. He is still alive. Once the coast is clear, he and Stella make a dash for the house where they find Billy huddled in the corner of his bedroom. That's pretty much as good as it gets, though, as Billy has been reduced to a broken shell of his former self, having executed his family to spare them from the vampires, yet failing to end his own life. They manage to half carry, half drag a despondent Billy back to the station, only to find it abandoned and bloodied. Their only hope is that the others made it to the utilidor, so they set off to find out.
In the script, Billy is too weak to walk, so they spend 2 days in his house helping him regain his strength before returning to the station.
Yeah, that makes much more sense seeing how it was apparently gutted in their seemingly brief absence.
Yeah. And there's also a really cool vamp moment in the script that is missing from the film. Check it out.
Exterior, Jaco's house, night. Title, Day 26. Zuriel and Archibald circle this house hungrily, scratching at the windows. Interior, Coletta house, night. From behind the curtains in this now ransacked and blood-stained home, Eben watches as exterior, Jaco house, night. Eben's POV. Paul Jaco, one of the twin sewage workers, bolts from his house in desperation, driven mad by the taunting of Zuriel and Archibald. Paul runs through the snow for just one horrific moment as Marlowe swoops down from the roof, plummeting the screaming Paul into a snowdrift. Zuriel and Archibald careen after him, ready to feed, only to see that Marlowe has beaten them to it. Archibald, in parentheses, territorial snarl. Marlowe rears up, face wet with blood, willing to tolerate no challenge to his kill. Marlowe, in parentheses, feral threat. He doesn't have to say it twice. Archibald and Zuriel back off, watching obediently as Marlowe descends again to feed on Paul Jaco. Now back on screen, Eben, Stella and Billy take cover beneath a house as a young girl, Gail Robbins, blood-soaked and clearly in shock, staggers down the street.
Where did this random child come from, I hear you ask? Never fear, for the script has the answers you seek.
Interior, Robin's house hallway, night. Zuriel stalks through the house, keening, intercut with interior, Robin's house, closet, night, simultaneous. Crammed into the closet for the hot water heater are Frank and Michelle Robbins and their kids Larry and Gail. They quail, hearing Zuriel's footsteps, his unearthly keening. After a horrible moment, the footsteps fade away, the keening ends. Larry sighs, hoping they're safe. Zuriel, in the hallway, turns suddenly and sees the cloud of Larry's breath coming from the closet. Exterior, crawl space, night. Screams pull Eben, Stella and Billy to the edge of the house to see. Exterior, Robin's house, night. Eben's POV. Gail fills the frame, careening from the house, screaming. Far in the background, we see what Gail is running from, the destruction of her family. Zuriel drops the remains of the boy Larry. His mother Michelle's now dead inside, as Larry's father Frank throws himself at Zuriel in a desperate attempt to save his family. Zuriel clutches Frank by the throat with one hand and begins severing Frank one limb at a time. But mostly what we see is Gail, because she's running straight towards the crawl space where Eben is hiding. Exterior, crawl space, night, continuous. Stella reaches out to embrace Gail, clamping a hand over her mouth to stop her crying. Eben's POV. It's too late. Zuriel looks up from his attack on Frank, narrowing his gaze to find the source of Gail's crying, looking right into the eyes of Eben, Stella and Billy. He keens hungrily at the sight of them. Eben shouts an order to Billy. Eben, I'm giving you a chance to help save someone. Then to Stella. Get her away, we'll cover you. Exterior, Robin's house, night, continuous. Eben rolls out with Billy before Stella can argue, raising his axe and tearing with Billy around the side of the house. Face bloody, Zuriel follows Eben and Billy around the house. Exterior, crawl space, night, continuous. Stella and Gail scramble out, searching furiously for safety. Interior, Robin's house, kitchen, night, continuous. Eben and Billy run inside the back door, past Michelle's corpse on the floor. But Zuriel is there before they know it. He grabs Eben, and the axe clatters to the floor. Billy freaks and runs out. Eben shocked by the desertion as Zuriel's jaws open wide for the attack. Exterior, streets, night, simultaneous. Stella and Gail hesitate by a trio of abandoned cars as they reach the corner, footsteps nearing them. Stella looks about wildly in search of safety. Interior, Robin's house, kitchen, night, resume. Eben flails an arm toward the kitchen counter, finds a carving knife and slashes it across Zuriel's face before the vampire can attack. Zuriel reels with an eerie, keening scream, his black blood spurting across his eyes. Eben reaches for the axe and scrambles away as Uriel clutches his face in pain. This does tie in with what occurs on screen. Stella grabs the defenseless child off the street but is spotted by Zuriel. Eben tries to make a distraction while Billy just runs off in a gibbering mess, where he is spotted and stalked by the vampire Arvin. Eben finally makes it to the Utilidor, where he is met by Jake, Denise, and Lucy, but to his horror, there's no sign of Stella and Gale.
I really struggled with the break into third act in this one. I initially had it down when Eben doses up near the climax, but it just kind of felt a little bit too late in the day. So I ended up placing it here. I'd love to hear what you thought about it.
Yeah, I had it here too, dude. So, like, Eben's made it to the Utilidor and he's found out that Stella isn't there. So, yeah, it's pretty kind of clean for me. Yeah, had it here. So Marlowe, realizing it will not be long before the sun finally dawns, instructs his minions to burn the town to ashes to ensure that there are no survivors. They cannot risk knowledge of their existence becoming commonplace, it seems. Billy, meanwhile, stumbles to the Utilidor, unaware he's being followed all the way.
Good job, Billy. Well done, mate.
Yeah, well, Billy makes it inside and is followed all the way by Arvin, who jumps the poor guy and rips most of his throat out. He screams, which alerts the others, who try to subdue the lethal predator, but with no success. He batters them away and threatens to hurl Eben into
the giant grinder of death.
Yeah, the giant grinder of Deathly. Upon seeing his best friend about to die, Billy finally finds his courage and tackles the vampire into the whirling metal teeth, which pretty much reduces Arvin to a fine red mist, though it does cost Billy half his arm. And this all kicks off at around the 1 hour, 31 minute, and 30-second mark. It's not over yet, though, as a mortally wounded Billy, deep into a monstrous transformation, starts screaming in a high-pitched vampiric shriek, causing Eben to reluctantly decapitate his former best bud.
It's a really good decapitation too, even though it's like nearly 20 years old. The SFX work here really holds up well. And it's fucking beautiful, dude. It's like seamless.
Once again, Lee, you truly disturb me.
Hey, credit where credit is due, bud.
That's true. Now, Eben finally hears from Stella over the walkie-talkies, and she is alive, but her and Gale are trapped beneath a wrecked car and slowly freezing to deathly. The streets are full of stalking vampires at this point, so there's no way to get to them. Stella and Eben finally admit that they should never have left one another, but to make matters worse, the streets are filling with oil, and Marlowe ignites it, setting the town ablaze. At least now Stella won't freeze, but on the flip side, she'll burn to death instead.
Never rains, but it pours, eh?
Eben is suddenly struck with an epiphany. He grabs a syringe from a first aid station and fills it with the blood from Billy's corpse before injecting it into his own arm. He tells Jake to watch out for the others and to call Stella and tell her to run for the Utilidor when it's clear. It's a badass moment, Lee, as Eben staggers from the safety of the Utilidor. Kick-ass soundtrack engages as he walks purposefully down a frozen street to confront Marlowe, who recognizes him immediately and accepts his challenge at around the 1 hour, 41 minute mark. Eben gets some good licks in, but it seems Marlowe is just toying with him at this point. Stella and Gale do manage to escape, though, so whatever the outcome, at least his wife is safe for the moment. Marlowe continues to torture Eben before lunging in for the kill, at which point Eben punches straight through the vampire's mouth and blasts out the back of his head.
Falcon Punch! I still can't decide if this moment is stone cold badass or just cheesy as fuck.
Well, there's no reason it can't be both, dude, I think. So with their leader bested and the sun perhaps minutes away, the rest of the murderous coven flee into the waking dawn. With Eben and Stella reunited for the final time, more survivors emerge from the burning remains of Barrow to welcome the dawn with their savior. Unwilling to contemplate life in this new form, Eben and Stella sit together and watch the sunrise until Eben is burnt away to ash and Stella is left to contemplate her life without him.
And boom, we are done. So come on, man, what did you think?
Yeah, cards on the table, Lee. I've seen this film before, and I'll be honest, I thought it was pretty good when I saw it initially, but it didn't kind of blow me away. and I thought it was a kind of pretty serviceable horror film with a cool premise. I kind of felt the same this time round, dude. I mean, I think the film is well made and pretty good, but it didn't blow me away. I think in some ways the film kind of fails to deliver amazingly well on its kind of premise. And I wouldn't say I was underwhelmed, but I wasn't like blown away by it. So kind of had the same reaction as to when I first saw it, to be honest.
No, fair enough, dude. I mean, I kind of no shocker here, but I love this film. I love the comics, the mythology, the whole 9 yards. And I think they did a pretty damn good job of adapting and, for the most part, improving the original comic for the big screen.
Nice, dude. Okay, then let's break this baby down. So, as I'm sure you're all aware, we begin the breakdown with a retrospective look at our reasons for choosing the film.
So, first up, the concept. I mean, as I said earlier, this shit pretty much writes itself. I've been dwelling a lot on concept lately, and I think sometimes we don't fully appreciate just how hard and how beneficial it is to your script to have an absolutely killer concept. I mean, this is undoubtedly what Hollywood refers to as high concept film. And that doesn't mean something arty or elevated. It just means that it can be perfectly summed up and sold in one sentence. That being, vampires descend upon a town in Alaska where the sun doesn't rise for 30 days. Boom, sold. Take my money. I know I prattle on about concept a lot on the podcast, but it is so key.
Yeah, agreed, man. I mean, I think it's something we kind of take for granted sometimes. I mean, we have, good idea and we're good writers, but it's always that hurdle of getting people to read your stuff. And a high concept will help with that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So okay, let's talk vampires. And again, I won't linger too long here because I've spent a lot of time on this already. The vampires in this film are so iconic and unique that they stand out head and shoulders above the rest of their blood-sucking peers. Danny Houston, in particular, all the vampire cast do an amazing job, whether it's from the dialect to the body language. Everything is just perfect. And it's a crime against humanity that we've never seen these things on the big screen since. Finally, let's take a look at the differences between the film and the comic and a brief look at how the story would evolve in the sequels. So, as I mentioned earlier in the comics, the vampires are much more civilized in nature, speak perfect English or whatever language is needed to communicate with their prey. The vampire Marlowe first learns about Barrow while sheltering from the sun after a killing spree. He takes refuge in an elderly couple's apartment and basically just catches a documentary about it on TV, about the town where the sun doesn't rise for 30 days. And he then organizes a gathering of his kin. In the comic, Eben and Stella are happily married with no issues. Stella works with Eben in the police force. There's also a subplot about vampire hunters in New Orleans. Their leader sends her son to obtain photographic evidence of the massacre so they can expose the vampires. He rents a helicopter from a nearby town and is successful in sending his mother the video footage, but is brought down and killed by vampires. Billy and his family's death isn't actually referred to until book 3, although it is shown in the film, as it does technically occur at the same time as the initial attack. Marlowe isn't killed by Eben in the comics. He's killed by elder vampire Vincent, who travels to Barrow to try and stop the massacre, fearing exposure. And then arriving too late, he orders the town destroyed and its people killed. And it is he whom Eben slays in combat after injecting himself with vampire blood. And in the film, Marlowe is kind of a combination of the two characters from the comic, Marlowe and Vincent.
Okay, so there are some serious deviations from the plot there. How about the sequels? Where does the plot go from there?
Okay, I'll just cover the first two sequels, as that kind of forms a fairly coherent, self contained trilogy. So, in the sequel, Dark Days, Stella has written a book about 30 Days of Night and works with a small group of believers to hunt and expose the vampire species. She is helped by a sympathetic vamp who she has a brief fling with before learning that she can use a mixture of her blood and Evan's ashes to resurrect him. She makes a deal with a vampire elder, the video proof of vampiric existence for her husband's ashes, but double crosses the undead and blows a large percentage of them up with a concealed explosive. She then bloodies Evan's ashes, which does indeed return him to life, but in the last panel, it's of him lunging to bite her. And then the final book of the trilogy, Return to Barrow. We basically return to Alaska, where Billy's brother takes over the role of sheriff and quickly learns that the 30 Days of Night were real and not a hoax. The townsfolk have basically turned the city into a fortified outpost complete with UV streetlights, watchtowers, fences, and a shit ton of guns. But the vamps, however, seeing like Barrow as a kind of stain on their like reputation, have decided to wipe the town off the map and launch a major assault with guns of their own, which is something the townsfolk were not expecting at all. But just as it looks like all is lost, two shadowy figures tear through the town and annihilate any vampire in their path. And the survivors follow them to nearby woods where we learn that is in fact a vampiric Eben and Stella who vow to always protect the town from here on out.
Cool. Yeah, there's definitely multiple mini-series potential here.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Okay, man. So let's look at our characters. Are there any introductions that stood out to you as particularly effective or memorable?
This will probably come as no surprise, but it's absolutely Marlowe's intro. I'll read it for you. Their eyes are entirely black, diamond hard and shiny, so that the snow sometimes reflects in them. They walk like humans would, if humans were nothing but muscle and hunger and cruel cunning. 17 of them swarm around the alpha leader of the group, Marlowe, mid-30s, feral, ragged, relentless. He cracks the frozen blood on his face, lets it fall as he hisses in an ancient, glottal, unrecognizable language. How about you, man? What was your top character introduction in the script?
Yeah, no, it's totally awesome in Italy. To be honest, I actually picked out the same passage from the script with Marlowe's intro, but I started the excerpt kind of a little bit earlier to include the rest of a bit more of it. But for the sake of doing something differently, I went for the introduction of Bo. It's short, it's simple, but I think it sums up his character really well. So that says, it goes like this. At the edge of town, Eben and Billy pull over beside a huge snowplow, swerved crookedly onto the shoulder. The back is covered with a tarp. A stream of oil drips from the truck bed. Working under the open hood is Bo Brower, late 50s, thick bearded, an ox of a man with the social skills to match. Okay, so before we break down the scarology, did you have a scariest moment, Lee?
Absolutely. And without a doubt, it's the no God scene with Marlowe and Kirsten. But pretty much any scene with Danny Houston in it is bloody terrifying. I've said it before, and I know the guy's made a career of largely playing villains, but this right here is on a whole other level. If there were horror Oscars, this guy would have picked up a Best Actor award for this movie, no doubt. Hell, if I ran the board at the Academy, he'd have picked up Best Supporting Oscar for this role. It is that damn good. What about you, man? What was yours?
Yeah, I think I agree with you, dude. I mean, the moment where the vamps are just kind of slicing at her for fun is pretty horrifying, isn't it? And you get this sense of both her and Eben's kind of helplessness at that moment. It's pretty scary stuff. I do want to say, I think Danny Houston's kind of casting is interesting for me. He's not what you might initially imagine as like a head vampire, right? But he does have a sinister quality in this film, which I think kind of just really works. Like there's something sinister about him. I'm not sure it's an Oscar-worthy performance, Lee, but it's pretty good. I mean, it does breathe life kind of into the character, so to speak. Into something that a character that could be kind of pretty one-dimensional, really.
Horror Oscars, dude. Totally different from the lame official ones. Pretty good. Come on, this dude was more than pretty good.
All right, then. Okay, well, let's talk about scarology. So, first of all, yes or no answer. Does the film more or less confirm to the 10-minute rule?
Yes, it does.
Nice, dude. Break it down for us.
Okay, so it's a little while before our first full scare, that being the vamp's first kill at 18 minutes. And then it's the stalling of the Ho train at 22 minutes and 45, and the attack on the Reese family at 28:45, followed swiftly by the vamp attack on the police truck at 33 and 25. Then it's our introduction to Big Bad Marlowe a few minutes later at 36 minutes, followed swiftly by Adam and Jeannie's murder a minute and a half later, and then the wholesale slaughter of the town a minute after that. And then with that out of the way, it's Eben and Stella's narrow escape from the upturned vehicle at 41:30, followed a little under 10 minutes later at 50:30 by the vamps using poor Kirsten as bait. And around 5 minutes later, it's the discovery of the vamped out John Reese. 6 minutes later, we get the near miss in the house where Wilson meets his demise. 5 minutes after that, it's the vampire girl in the general store, and 10 minutes later, it's the giant fucking chainsaw truck and Carter's tragic end. 15 minutes later, it's the giant grinder of death at 1:31:30, and 10 minutes after that is our final boss battle with Eben versus Marlowe at 1 hour 41 minutes.
Nice, dude. Okay, well, let us break down those acts for you. So, Act 1 starts off with a slow and deliberate escalation of tension before hitting us with 4 relatively evenly paced scares towards the end of the act. Act 2 hits us with 9 evenly paced scares, well within the 10-minute rule. This doesn't give us much time to rest and still continues to escalate the stakes as the survivors are gradually picked off throughout. Act 3 wraps things up with 2 big scares about 10 minutes apart before leading to our hopeful yet still tragic conclusion.
Fantastic. And do you have any thoughts on the themes at work here?
I do. I think certainly if we're looking at our sort of Parker themes, we have the fear of death thematic running through the film. I think in a wider context, I think there's obviously this thing about survival and fighting for survival against kind of insurmountable odds and kind of resilience, etc. But for me, the film seems to be about sacrifice. There's a lot of kind of sacrificing going on in this film, whether that's sacrificing oneself for the good of others or loved ones or family, etc. So Bo sacrifices himself to save members of his community. The vampires sacrifice those who've recently turned in order to keep their numbers down. Eben has to sacrifice his own mental well-being for others, with the things like chopping off, the head of infected Carter. Billy sacrifices an arm to help Eben, and ultimately the film ends with our protagonist sacrificing himself to save his wife and the rest of the survivors by injecting himself with vampire blood. I mean, what I thought was interesting in reading the script is if you read sort of Blake Snyder, you read about stating the theme. And this is something a secondary character usually does to the protagonist in, say, the first sort of 10 pages of the script or so. And sacrifice isn't referenced precisely where Snyder states in the 30-day script, but it is referenced a fair bit. So this is from when Bo sacrifices himself. Interior hotel night. Sudden quiet. The ditch driller sits in the middle of rubble. Bo grabs his shotgun and a box of flares from the truck, climbing out through the windshield. No sign of his enemies. He slides, dazed and bleeding, off the hood of the truck and looks about. Emerging from the rubble, 6 vampires surround him, 2 of them still pinned in bear traps, all of them viciously angry. Bo lifts his shotgun. Click. Empty. He grins punchily, reaches for a flare. Bo, you ain't gonna eat me. He lights a flare, drops it in the box, exploding them all. Exterior, street, night. Eben stops for a second in heartbreak regarding the fiery glow from Rogers Avenue, Bo's sacrifice. And so this is from where Eben is thinking of trying to rescue Stella from under the truck. Eben, if she runs, the bastards get her. If she stays put, she'll burn. Jake, pale and honest, stands at his side. Jake, you try to reach her, won't they go after all of us? Eben leans against the door in pain, knowing he can't sacrifice everyone else, but unable to give up on Stella. And I think this one, Lee, is the clearest of all. So this is from when Eben dies in Stella's arms due to the rising sun. The sun stares down at them, beautiful and deadly, searing them with lethal radiance. Camera circles around them as Eben winces, gasps in pain. Stella throws her arms around him for dear life. Eben's skin finishes charring to black as Stella holds him. Within moments, he is dead. Close on Stella, the sun reflected in her eyes as her heart breaks for Eben and his sacrifice. So what is interesting is if you actually have a look in the script at around where Snyder sort of says it should be, we get this little passage of dialogue between Jake and Helen. And this is where Jake is playing the board game against himself. So interior, sheriff station, night. Jake 15 plays Risk against himself, moving from one side of the board to the other. Bright, pale, he's like a young love child of David Byrne and Elvis Costello. As he plays, Jake, it'd be easier if you played, Helen. Across the room, Helen, late 60s, sits at the radio console. She doesn't like you to know that she's fighting cancer. A positive attitude is one of her weapons against it. Helen, I really don't care for games like that if you want to know the truth. Don't you learn a lot when you play against yourself? Jake, yeah. Playing yourself is the ultimate blah-de-blah-de-blah. So, I mean, that kind of hints at the idea of testing oneself and resilience, I think, which is interesting. What do you think, dude? What were your thoughts?
Pretty much the same kind of line. I mean, as is most often the case, we've got the classic Parker themes of fear of death, fear of the unknown. And if you're looking at Snyder's ideas, then this is a classic example of a monster in the house scenario. In a more general sense, I think this is very much kind of a movie about hope, despair, and kind of fighting for what you love. I mean, the 30 days of night represent despair, and the coming dawn represents hope. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, but sometimes you have to go through hell to get there.
Yeah, dude. And what, if anything, did you learn from the script, Lee?
Yeah, this one is tricky because, this is a well written and tight script, but I didn't really feel anything stood out in particular. If anything, I felt some of the action lines were a little overwritten, but I did enjoy the way the script uses its parentheticals to give us an insight into the character's thoughts and emotions. I bet that was a big help to the actors at the time. The dialogue was good. Yeah, it always felt pretty natural. I can see why they cut a lot of the marital drama between Evan and Stella, as I feel it could have bogged down the story a little. One thought I can't get out of my head, though, is how cool would this be as a limited series? 6 episodes, 6 hour long episodes, maybe. I can't believe nobody has done this yet. Then you could adapt the sequels and get a whole franchise out of this. It's begging to be done. As the one complaint I had with the movie was that the time jumps felt, more than a little jarring. I mean, imagine doing a Darabont style remake of this with Slade back in the director's chair. It'd be absolutely peak.
Yeah, I think for me, the film is let down in some ways by having to cover that kind of 30-day period. I mean, it only really comes across in the film through supers and some, minor kind of beard growth. And I think that is why, I felt the film doesn't quite live up to the premise, which I mentioned earlier. But, you just don't get a sense that they're there for 30 days at all,
Yeah.
really, I didn't think. And
No,
I think it would have been, like you say, I mean, it would really sort of fit better, I think would be suited for a limited series. I think that would be really awesome. As for what I learned from the script, not loads, dude. Kind of like yourself. I mean, it's really well written and I found it a really sort of good read. I enjoyed reading it. I enjoyed the intros. I also thought the use of parentheticals was really interesting, like you mentioned. It was a really well formatted script, kind of traditional in its formatting. So I didn't learn kind of a great deal, but that's not to say it's not well written because it really is.
yeah.
Okay, well, I think we're almost done here, dude. But before we wrap up and talk about our next episode, what would you rate the script and film as here?
Okay, so I'm going to give the script a 7 and the film an 8.
Cool. Well, I thought the script was a 7 and I thought the film was a 6.
A 6? Dude,
Yeah, I
giant
do.
chainsaw truck. Grinder of death
I know, but
alone is worth at least a 7. Come on.
uh,
Okay.
maybe I could possibly be persuaded. But it was, yeah, just there's something about this movie just kind of feels a bit, falls a bit short, just sort of falls a bit flat for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Sorry.
Different strokes for different folks. So that gives us matching 14 out of 20 for the script and 14 out of 20 for the film. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's probably about fair. I think that's probably about fair, to be honest.
Yeah, I would like to have seen it up around 15 out of 20 for each, but I can live with 14 out of 20.
Yeah, well, what can you do? Hey,
What can
different
we do?
strokes. Like,
Yeah.
maybe the thing to do is to work on that limited series and.
Yeah. Man, if I had the rights, I would nail that thing.
Absolutely. All right, dude. So what's on the agenda for next time?
Or next time, and I always say this, but this time it's exceptionally true. It's a good one. It's a really, really good one. Okay, I am super stoked about this as we kick off our first ever original versus remake face-off with the original iconic Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And we will, without any shadow of a doubt, using strict scientifically tested data, decide which is objectively the better film, the original or the remake.
Yeah, dude. Sounds amazing. Totally looking forward to that. Really good stuff. Okay, well, that's about it for this week. But if you've enjoyed the podcast, please hit like and subscribe. It's totally free. And if you're feeling generous, please leave a review on your podcatcher of choice because it really helps us find new people and new people find us. Check out our socials. We're on Facebook and Blue Sky and can be reached there. We also publish to YouTube, so you can listen to us there. There's no visuals currently, but plenty of audio goodness. And feel free to drop us a line with any thoughts on our website. And that is www.scripttoscreenpodcast.com. We always love hearing from you guys and have a lot of content there, script samples, scarology graphs, all sorts of stuff. And we are now also offering script reading services. We will analyze your scripts and give you tailored feedback on your work. We're also, and this is quite exciting for us, creating pitch decks for projects. We will collaborate with you to create a stunning pitch deck for your project, which you can then take out into the world and start pitching. So if that's of interest, go to the website, navigate to the script reading page, and you can get all of that info there. But until next time, do take care.
Cut the dick, and keep writing those scares.